touring is the hardest job I have ever done in my life, ever. And people don't see that side of it. And I don't think I could do it now, if I'm pretty fair. There was a lot of guys in the band that were older than me at the time I was doing it, but they were real tour war horses. Do you know what I mean? That's just, they live for that life. But I think with what I'm doing now, I don't think I could backtrack into that now. I think I've experienced it, enjoyed it, God, wholeheartedly. You know, one thing I will always take away from that period of my life was the sheer joy and how lucky I felt to be living that life. You know what I mean? Because many people work in music all their lives and never get to that point or that stature. So I do feel very honoured to have been able to.
Yeah, amazing experience. Do you find it weird now not sort of working with such a big entourage of people? I mean, do you go out and doing solo gigs and stuff?
I do. I'm working with a wonderful Motown theatre show at the minute that is absolutely incredible. They're one of the best out there. And I'm not going to say who they are for reasons because of my political values. I don't want to drag them into it. It's not fair on them, but they are incredible. And I do now and again little solo things just to keep my toe in the water. But I am still involved in the entertainment business, and there's quite a few different things that I'm working on, projects that I'm working on now. Not so much music, but TV and events. I just think I've done that, and it was wonderful. So why ruin it by trying to keep rehashing it? I want to experience new things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's no prizes for doing the same thing all the time, is there? So it's good to do.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
Today we are going to talk about obviously some of your political views. About obviously, and I know you've spoken about this before about you leaving the band and the reasons that you left the band, and also we want to talk about the whole council tax thing that's going on because everybody obviously has just received their bills and they're all going to be freaking out there about their council tax bills and why are they paying it anymore. But let's just go back to leaving the band, and that was due to the whole COVID thing, wasn't it?
It was. Well, it was more to do with the COVID vaccine more than anything. I mean, I've said this in quite a few interviews. People know my history regarding my medical condition, that I have a symptom called atrial fibrillation, which is an irregular heartbeat.
Yes.
And many moons ago, even while I was on the road, I experienced a severe attack of atrial fibrillation. And I always liken it to the intro to EastEnders, or the dumpers at the end, or the thumpers. Literally, my heart was doing that. But anyway, I went to the doctors, and I had a cardioversion, which is where you go into a hospital and they put a pad on the front and the rear of your back, chest and back, and they shock your heart back into rhythm. Now, initially, being very naive and rock and roll, I thought, well, I'm cured now. This is it. I'm back to normal. Yes, let's get back up. So I started smoking and drinking, thinking everything. Within 2 to 3 weeks, that was all out the window. So I was a victim of my own, detriment there. But so anyway, I stopped drinking, stopped smoking, blah, blah, blah. Went back to the doctor and they said, yeah, you really need to, be sensible. So I had another one. And while after I had it, one of the consultant cardiologists advised me to have the flu vaccine. He said, you'd be vulnerable to catching, and if you were, because of your heart, it's weak and blah, blah, blah. So I had the flu vaccine, unknowing, because when you're a musician, I've had so many. I mean, I was never anti-vax before all this. No. I've had so many vaccines to travel the world, the yellow fever and countless. There's a library full of them. So I had the flu vax, and then after having it on the evening, I was taking a shower, and as I was soaping myself, I felt this growth underneath my armpit, and it was like somebody had sewn half a tennis ball underneath my armpit. It was really painful.
Right.
I said to my other half, I said, look, I need to get this checked out. It's really hurting. She said, well, you've just had your vaccine, so just let it go the night. She said, you know what happens? Sometimes you get reactions, blah, blah. If it's like it in the morning, then we'll zip down and see, what they think. So that's what we did. Overnight then, unfortunately, it threw my heart back out of rhythm, the whole thing. pot again. So skipping ahead a little bit, from that point on, there was no way I was going to have any other kind of vaccination that was linked to, the flu vaccine, the SARS, the whole. So that was my stance when it came around to. That was one of the main real reasons why I didn't have the COVID vaccine when I was urged or pushed into having it, with the pressured even, with the band. And secondly, the reason I didn't have it was because I didn't trust. There was just something about it that it was too rushed. It was like, all of a sudden we found a vaccine within, 6 months. Just like, do me a favour, Main reason for me, I mean, thank the Lord. I mean, sometimes they say these things happen for a reason, but having that happen to me prevented me from, I mean, who knows what could have happened, you know what I mean? So
Would you have taken it, had you not had that incident before? Would you have taken it in order to travel with the band?
No, I wouldn't. And the reason being is, like, for what I've just said there was, it was just too dodgy, the whole thing surrounding it. It just didn't add up, they say trust your gut.
Yes.
Literally, I was trusting my gut on that instance,
How pressuring was it from members of the band? Did the band get involved and say, "Oh, come on, Matt, you've got to have it done, and why don't you get on with it? Stop being."
I didn't speak to any of them, Liam. None of them spoke to me. Once that kind of conversation was being had, I never spoke to anybody within the management or in the band face to face at all. It was all done by text message. So the whole procedure from me refusing it was done either via email or text. And I actually got fired from the band in a text message. Luckily, my other half said to me, look, you need to get this down in writing so you've got proof.
Yes.
Which we did. I just said to the band, I said, look, unless I take this vaccine, I'm no longer permitted to perform or do anything to be associated with the band. They said, yeah, that's right. They said, you need to have the COVID vaccine for us to carry on working, because all of the venues stipulate that anybody being in or within the band, the venue, blah, 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 has to be COVID vaccinated.
It's amazing that you've got like all these members of the band and this, that, and the other, and then nobody actually sits down and has a chat with you, and your management don't have a chat with you when you've done 10 years of service.
Yeah. There was no. Let's try and work through this. Let's try and find an angle where we can get past this so we can carry on working. There was none of that.
They didn't sort of say, well, we'll go off and do the abroad stuff, but, when we're back in the UK, we can have you back in, or there was no mediation or anything like that?
Nothing at all. No. Nothing at all. And also there was to the point where there would have been, should we try and go down the testing route? Should we do the test so you don't test positive? If you're negative, you can still do the show, blah, blah, blah. There was none of that. Not that I would have done it anyway, because that the old PCR tests, they were just a waste of time anyway. It was ridiculous. But the ironic thing, and I always say this to everybody, is that when all of a sudden the management received the green light that venues were opening up again, their first show back was in Leeds, Millennium Point. And they had to cancel it anyway because 2 of the band members tested positive for COVID. And they were vaccinated, so I was just like, thank the Lord.
Oh, that's rather ironic. But did you have good friends in the band? I don't want to get division or divisive here, but did you have good friends in the band that, didn't? I'm just amazed they never communicated with you or anything. Do you feel really let down by the people that you work with?
If I'm brutally honest, no. And the reason being is because from the start of the band, when I was in the band, we were always shortchanged financially with payments. We were never paid kind of money that we were supposed to have been paid. Reason being, at the beginning of it was because when Ali Campbell originally left the original lineup, it was kind of asked between the band if we would take a lesser fee, just so we could get things and get him back on his feet again and get him out there again. Obviously, when things started picking up, your wages would be adjusted accordingly to the venues that we'd start playing, which we were okay with that.
Yes.
But it never happened. And we went from 2010 paying, shopping malls abroad in America, to small theatres that Ali couldn't even fill. to in 2014, where Astro came back into the band as well. We went from that to theatres, to big auditoriums, to arenas, to stadiums.
Yes.
And we were still being paid the same fee.
Did people kick off about it?
Well, this is the point where we're coming to now regarding the rest of the band. You see, I was always the one that was a little more self-opinionated and said, look, this is ridiculous. We're doing all these shows and he's not honouring his end of the bargain, and at one point I was stood on stage at the O2 Arena, the Millennium Dome, performing in front of nearly 20,000 people for £250, which I could get in a local Ember Inn down the road.
Yes.
I'll probably get more than that, and he was happy to pay the rest of the band. So I was always the one that was instigating. Look, all we need to do is come together.
Yes.
Come together and just say, it's either this or we don't perform anymore. And he was never going to get another band that he would be able to pay that fee to anyway, that would do those kind of shows for that kind of money. But they never would. They never would. They were all a bit, for want of a better word, spineless, I suppose. They wouldn't put themselves in that position. So it always got
actors, do you find sort of, like, I mean, I was an actor for many, many years. Do you find that sort of actors and a lot of people in that sort of theatrical profession and musicians don't seem to have a lot of backbone? They are very much there for themselves, and they don't stand. If somebody goes forward and stands up, they don't follow behind, do they?
No, no. It's absolutely, yes, I agree. No, we should definitely do that. And then when I went up, it's like, hello. Well, it was that situation, So and I think that was one of the reasons. Another reason that they may have been glad to get rid. It was an excuse, the COVID thing, well, to kind of get the final push,
because
getting out.
You become the problem in the end, don't you?
Exactly, yeah. For having your own opinion, your own mind, or justice, even, really,
Yeah, yeah.